Yo, what's up guys? Today we're gonna talk about a theme that many people don't mention in GTA San Andreas, particularly in terms of gameplay and lore at the same time. And this theme is a very strange in my opinion, because in a way that's both fascinating and kind of frustrating. We're talking about the last Ventura segment of the game, particularly focusing on the missions and how they're structured from now. So let's start from the beginning of the segment. After Woozy calls up CJ and tells him to swing by the Four Dragons casino, things kick off fast. You find out that some mobsters are smashing the triad slot machines, and it turns out that it's Johnny Sindako, the head of the Sindako crime family. And the reason Johnny was smacking machines is because the triad had just opened a casino right down the block of them, and the Sindako didn't want any kind of competition. This is the point in the game where you start to realize that the Caliguala's casino is going to be a big deal in this part of the story, and particularly because they're attacking the casino of the triad. Fast forward a few missions, the truth calls CJ and he tells him that two of his friends, Kent, Poe and Macker, have gone missing out in the desert. So you roll out and save these dudes, and then they ask CJ to drop them at the Caliguala's casino because they're tied with Ken Rosenberg. This kicks off a whole new set of missions for Ken, where you basically infiltrate the casino and start learning how things work there. Now here's where you realize in this segment that the Caliguala's casino is shared between three mafia families, the Leones, the Forellis and the Sindakos. Each family owes 33%, which sounds like a business plan for chaos, and surprise, that's exactly what happens. These guys are constantly fighting and CJ is caught up in the middle of all this mess. And the idea of this whole segment in Las Venturas is to rob the casino, that's it. Every mission you do is some kind of setup for the big heist, whether it's stealing equipment, scouting out the place or messing with the mafia's plans. It's all building up for this big moment. Then finally, after you complete St. Mark's Bistro, the heist gets unlocked. But here's the crazy part that I'm gonna talk about, especially in this video. You don't even have to do the heist to progress the game. Yep, you can just skip it entirely, move on to a home in the hills and finish up the Las Venturas arc without even pulling off the heist. Now let's unpack this, because it's a wild both from a gameplay and a lore perspective. First off, the structure of the Las Venturas missions in terms of gameplay feels off. On paper, the segment is all about setting up the big heist of Caliguala's casino. You've got missions where you steal the necessary tools, scout the casino and destabilize the mafia families that run the place. It feels like everything is building up to one epic moment, and the game even trains you to think it's this way. But then you realize the heist isn't required. This undermines the entire gameplay flow of Las Venturas. The game spends hours setting you for something only to let you skip it. It's like building a roller coaster, hyping the drop and then telling the riders actually you can just walk down the stairs instead. The missions leading up to heist are required to progress the story, but the heist itself isn't. This creates a weird disconnection in how the game communicates what's important. Think about it, in other parts of San Andreas, required missions drive the story forward, while optional missions are clearly a side content. But in Las Venturas, the game blurs this line. It tricks you into thinking the heist is a mandatory story mission. I mean, why would you spend so much time preparing for something that ultimately doesn't matter for the progression? There is no emotional payoff for the hours you spend preparing. It's like watching a movie where the third act just goes cut off, leaving you without a hollow feeling. And here's another option to consider. Rockstar could have leaned into player's choice here. If the heist was optional, it could have framed as a branching path. For example, completing the heist could have consequences like increased mafia aggression or affecting CJ's reputation. Skipping the heist could have led to different storyline where the Leones gain more power and CJ faces difficult challenges. Instead, skipping the heist just feels like a missed opportunity rather than a meaningful choice. The game doesn't acknowledge it, and you're left wondering why you spend so much time on the setup. San Andreas is a massive game, and each segment of the game, the Los Santos segment, the Badlands segment, the San Fierro segments, the Desert segment and the Las Venturas segment, and the others, has its own rhythm. Las Venturas is supposed to be the high stakes, action-packed segment where CJ takes on the mafia. The heist should have been the climax of this arc, tying everything together, but by making it optional, the pacing falls apart. If you skip the heist, the Las Venturas arc feels incomplete. You go from St. Mark's Bistro straight to Los Santos missions, skipping what should be the big finale. It's like reading a book and skipping the last chapter of a major arc. The optional way that the heist was made creates a lot of problems. It undermines the sense of progression and payoff in the Las Venturas arc. It creates a disconnect between required and optional missions, confusing the player. It misses an opportunity for meaningful player choice, and it disrupts the pacing, leaving the arc feeling incomplete. Rockstar is usually great at balancing gameplay and story, but this feels a rare misstep. Now let's talk about the lore problem, because this here is where it gets even messier. The heist itself is a 100% canon event. It has to happen for the GTA universe to make sense, because in both GTA 3 and Liberty City stories, Salvatore Leone is paranoid as hell. He doesn't trust anyone, and a big part of that is because CJ betrayed him and robbed him in Caliguala's casino. If you skip the heist in San Andreas, you miss out this critical backstory. Suddenly Salvatore's paranoia in later game doesn't have the same weight, and it's not just about Salvatore, this affects the whole Leone family. And here's another big thing: if you skip the heist, you don't even get the iconic phone call from Salvatore after the robbery. In the call, Salvatore threatens CJ, saying he's going to make him pay for what he did. This is a huge moment that ties San Andreas to GTA 3 and Liberty City stories. Without this phone call, there's no clear link between CJ's actions and Salvatore's behavior in later games. Rockstar must have known how important this mission was, both for the story of San Andreas and the larger GTA lore, so why make it optional? If it's just a bonus, it's cheap as the impact. This isn't some random side content like the payphone assassination missions, it's a major turning point in the game and the entire series. For the players who know the lore, the whole situation feels like a huge oversight. It's like Rockstar was setting up something amazing but didn't stick the landing when it came to integrating it into the main story. At the end of the day, anyone who played GTA San Andreas and paid attention to the story will understand this critique. The heist at Caliguala's casino is a promotional moment, both for CJ's story and the larger GTA universe. Making it optional feels like a misstep, especially given how much work goes into setting it up. What do you guys think? Is this an oversight by Rockstar, or do you think there's a reason behind making the heist optional? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, I'll see you soon in the next video.